Okay, I think we can get started. So thank you all for joining. And We continue our sessions for the UA Day 2025. Um, in this panel is going to focus more on what are again some of the challenges, but more specifically on what are some of the what are the roles of different kinds of stakeholders towards addressing these challenges. Uh, on the panel, we have Catherine Liu, who's the Director of International Business at ZDNS in China. Um, we have online with us Fatma Akbar. She's the Assistant Professor of Computer Science at American University of Bahrain. Um, we also have Se-Som Wang um, here with us on the panel. Um, um, he's the Deputy Director General for Lao National Internet Center, Ministry of Technology and Communications, Lao PDR. Um, we have Werner Staub, um, who is the coordinator of permanent secretariat of member of executive committee of Core Association. Um, and we've also extended the panel today to invite Jaco Dutoit, who's a UNESCO representative to Nepal. Jaco was to speak in an earlier panel, but due to flight delays, due to weather, he was not able to participate. So we've requested him to join this panel as well. Um, we will be looking at a variety of issues and also solutions from different perspectives. Uh, from the perspective of domain name business, um, from how we can address some of the challenges by incorporating IDNs and UA education in universities and technical programs. We'll also look at the role of governments, what some of the work um, governments are doing towards promoting universal acceptance, um, and talk about some of the challenges and of course the opportunities for uh, uh, from the perspective of new universal acceptance for the next round of new GTLDs. And finally, we'll have Jaco talk more specifically about UNESCO's role in promoting a multilingual internet and also the role of international intergovernmental organizations. We will take questions, perhaps a question or so after each speaker. And we'll also have hopefully some time for questions and answers at the end of the session. So with that, let's move on and let me hand it over to Catherine, who's going to talk about issues and suggestions in IDN usage.
Thank you so much. It's my honor to participate in this session. I'm Catherine Liu from ZDNS, a registry service provider in China. During the first round of new GTLD application, we supported 21 TLDs with consulting and RSP services. So today, on behalf of our technical team, I'm here to share the challenges facing the IDN system and explore collaborative solutions. Next slide, please. So recently, we purchasing a CDN service for a website with a Chinese domain name. We discovered that the provider didn't support the Chinese characters. After that, we switched to another service provider, only to find some same issue that the Chinese input was not supported. So we tried to ask the customer support team, but they inform us that we need to convert the Chinese domain name to Punicode before proceeding. So since we are the commercial team, we are not already know the familiar with the technical team details. We ask our technical team about their assistance for encoding. After that, we successfully purchased for CDN services. Next slide, please. So actually, we purchased a domain name to launch our online business externally, and our entire process includes domain registration, DNS resolution, so website construction, SL certification, and other steps. However, we found that different service providers vary in their support for IDN, some of offering limited compatibilities. So as shown in the slide, we can select two service providers. During the domain registration, when we entered a Chinese domain name, the system flagged it is invalid. So the same issue occurred when purchasing an SL certificate. For this step, for the proceed, we had to convert IDN to Punycode first. Next slide, please. So regarding this issue with IDN on the application side, we communicate with several service providers. Although technical standards related to IDN such as RFC 5809, 90 to 5803 has been published, why do end-user applications still struggle to directly use IDNs? So based on our researching findings, there are primarily two reasons. The first one is there is a technical capability issues. Many client-side interface for the domain name input, such as the web page showing in our earlier site, it doesn't support ID input. This was confirmed through discussion with the technical teams of service provider. So their front-end engineers intentionally restrict ID input during the front-end validation. The reason is that the crucial backend components used by these providers don't fully support the various characters set requires for IDNs. So therefore, to avoid potential risk, this provider only allow user to input Punycode on their front end. So this also reflects the second issue, that is the inconsistent standards. As we seen earlier, while some service providers don't support the direct IDN import, most web browser can resolve IDNs. This means end users sometimes can directly use IDNs, while at other time they can't, creating a fragmented experience. Next slide, please. So in this situation, present several significant issues. First, for the user to properly utilize our IDN, they must understand Punycode conventions and know when it's required. And then, so this bound to have a lot of advanced efforts on the application of IDNs. First of all, IDNs become far less user-friendly compared with the ASCII domain names. Secondly, non-English speaking users are forced to rely on Punycode, a meaningless string of characters to indirectly access domain in their native languages. So Punycode lacks memorability and is difficult to distinguish from other Punycode strings, but it is only the way to use the IDNs. So finally, these barriers discourage business from adopting native language domain names for marketing or branding. So if the user face accessibility challenges, the value of IDNs in promoting services or building brand recognition becomes questionable. Next slide, please. So regarding this kind of issue, I believe future improvements can be made in two key areas, technology and ecosystem. First, at the short term, technical enhancement need to be implemented. Service provider across all stages of domain application, including domain registration, DNS resolution, and website hosting, should allow user to directly input IDNs and reducing the unnecessary effort, and then implement technical solution to automatic convert user entered IDNs into Punycode so that backend code can accept them and process them correctly. For the long term, technology and ecosystem optimization we both need to be implemented from the technical side. We should strengthen support for IDN characters by made Unicode capability in core portals, and including DNS resolution, registrar system, browser, and some not ASCII-only legacy components by set deadline. We can also collaborate with some industry to integrate IDEA and auto conversion into API gateways and edge nodes, emulating natural development, adjustment, and release open source, just like and publish some probability rating for the global top, just like 100 cloud platform. Finally, create a dedicated resource, including GitHub documentations, Stack Overflow topics with some multi-tingle code examples, and embed IDEA handle libraries into mainstream framework such as Python, Java to lower adoption barriers. So from the ecosystem side, encourage the user of IDN and develop the platform can provide IDN adaptation guidelines to help each service provider to integrate. So next slide, please. So resolving the current IDN ecosystem challenges requires the collaborative intelligence across the industry. So I'm primarily on the business side. So my technical team understanding this is my technical understanding is quite limited. Our technical team has also joined remotely. So and we are happy to cooperate on any questions that are raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. We can take a question if there is any. Otherwise, we can move on. Don't see any questions, so let's move on. So then let's go to our remote panelist, Fatma, who's going to talk about training needs and the role of universities towards enabling UA readiness. So over to you, Fatma.
Thank you. Am I audible? Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
All right. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. It's interesting to hear from everyone on this panel about the importance of different organizations and capacity building and being UA ready. So I want to share, next slide, the results of a quick poll I did in one of my courses where I asked students which of the following are not valid top-level domains. And as you can see, the options are .com, .net, .org, .edu. Everyone knows these are valid top-level domains. .bank, .london, .vote, most students pick that as not valid top-level domains. Then we have the country code top-level domains. Some students too only thought these are not valid, and only 4 answered correctly that none of the above are invalid. They're all valid top-level domains. So it's clear that students are not aware of latest standards and latest general top-level domains, which go beyond what we are taught, .com, .net, .org, and .edu, and so on. In the next slide, there was another question. Domain names can only use ASCII characters, and most students answered true, because in their training and everything they've been exposed to as computing and IT students, they only handled domain names and email addresses using ASCII characters. So a lot of students were not aware that you can have non-ASCII characters in domain names, which points to an important issue with the material that we teach in computer science and IT. So a typical IT or computing graduate would study these courses: programming, databases, networks, security, software development. And in all these courses, the focus is on ASCII. Whether we teach them how to read and write from a file or how to store a string in a database, relational or non-relational databases, There is minimal focus on handling languages. It's typically considered a very specialized topic to cover in introductory or foundational courses. So usually they would study languages or handling languages in programming when they do a specialized elective in natural language processing or even in graduate school. And part of that is because of the historical significance of ASCII to computing. And this is what is mainly covered in textbooks and reference material that we use in teaching computing courses. So within the academic field, there is a lack of comprehensive coverage of UA principles. Moving to the next slide. So why is it important, or what would happen? What are the implications of focusing primarily on ASCII in computing programs? Focusing on ASCII will make graduates less prepared to handle internationalization and localization, which are becoming an important, let's say, demand for developers and researchers and anyone working in computing. Both internationalization and localization require dealing with languages. So if they can only handle ASCII, it limits them in that aspect. Also, students and graduates will have reduced exposure to modern standards. So the standards have developed, have evolved. Domain names can be in different languages. Top-level domains are expanded. They're different from a couple of years ago. So if we only teach them how to handle ASCII, they are not exposed to these new and enhanced standards. Also, it narrows their problem-solving skills because handling Unicode and multiple languages requires a different set of skills, and different kinds of problems can arise, whether it's programming and technical problems or security problems, and they need to be trained to handle these issues. So these are the issues with focusing primarily on ASCII in academic computing programs. Next slide. So as universities, our role is to prepare students for the future. We are preparing developers who will create online systems and applications with universal acceptance in mind, ensure their work is ready for the future and works well for current internet users, as well as the next billions who will come online, who will speak different languages, who want to use the internet in their preferred language of choice. We are, as universities, preparing researchers who will investigate universal acceptance and will have interesting and complex problems to solve, programming, technical problems, security problems, and a lot of research areas to explore related to universal acceptance. We are preparing administrators and regulators who will have the opportunity to enable users globally to experience the social and economic power of the internet. So we are preparing students for the future, and that's why we need to focus on making them equipped with the skills to be to handle local languages on the internet, domain names, email addresses, and more. Next slide. So as universities, what are some concrete steps that we can take? We can integrate the ICANN Universal Acceptance Curriculum into our programs. So ICANN has developed a very detailed curriculum consisting of 12 modules, going from elementary programming courses to databases and networks and more specialized advanced courses. You can take this curriculum and integrate it in your courses. This integration can be just a small scale upgrade to existing courses, so adding a new topic or a subtopic, or adding an elective, for example, related to universal acceptance. You can add a requirement in your assignments or projects that you assign to students to make their system UA ready, which we have tried here in the American University of Bahrain. So for example, in elementary programming, when we teach them how to read and write from files, here we should expose them to Unicode, how to read and write files in Unicode. When we teach them databases, we teach them how to read and how to store Arabic text, for example, or any language without corruption. When they create a website, how to display different languages properly. Networks and communication, when we teach them about domain names and the domain name system, we also talk about internationalized domain names and so on. So for each course, there is a topic you can introduce that over time will build the skills necessary to build UA-ready applications. Next. So these are the 12 modules that are in the ICANN Universal Acceptance Curriculum. As you can see, it starts with Unicode Programming Fundamentals, which you can integrate in your introductory programming course. Then you have advanced programming, data structures, and then more specialized courses, developing mobile applications with IDNs, IDN security, and so on. And this is a step we started to implement at the American University of Bahrain. Hopefully in 1 or 2 years, we will have results to report and see how these skills helped our students be UA ready and build UA ready applications. This concludes my presentation. Thank you, and I will take any questions.
Thank you, Fatma. And as you point out, academia, of course, has an important role to play to make the next generation of developers ready to support all the different languages. We'll take one question and then we'll move on. We have Kok on the mic, so we'll go there.
Yeah.
If you want, you can also, so we'll take 2 questions and then we'll move on. So Kok first and then Anil.
Sure.
We'll take the questions and then go back, both the questions, and go back to Fatma then. So please go ahead.
Sure. Kwok Fam Graded Registry. Thanks, Fatma. That was a really interesting thing that you were giving a perspective from a education point of view. I guess on a technical basis, can domain names have non-ASCII characters? I guess it all depends on the interface and the context that it's used. Because Punycode encoding is because the interface of DNS doesn't accept non-US 7-bit ASCII characters inside the zone file entries. So I guess that translation at every single layer that you have to present to your students and to the concept of where is this label going to be used becomes really important. So in a purely DNS perspective, no, it's all US 7-bit ASCII, but the translation of that in its usage in other applications is that additional work that you have to do. So thank you for sharing that. I thought that was that's a view outside of the domain name industry that sometimes we don't get to sit down and think about. So yeah, that's it. Not a question, just a thanks.
Thank you, Kok. Anil, and then we'll go back to Fatma.
Fatima, congratulations for taking the lead in taking the UA curricula in your country. Now, in case the module which the curricular modules which are there in UA, are you offering this as a optional subject or it is an integrated subject in your curricula? And if it is optional, what is the response of students, whether they are willing to accept this as a challenge, as a new learning methodology, or there are resistance in that? Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. Over to you, Fatma.
Thank you for the comment about Unicode and ASCII for domain names and email addresses. Yes, definitely students need to understand how the infrastructure is built, and it can only handle ASCII, but you as a user can have an email address or domain name in any language. And then our job as programmers is to make that as smooth as not noticing that your internationalized domain names is converted to ASCII. Like the previous presenter mentioned, I don't need to manually go create the PUNI code and put it in the application. So definitely that's something that students will need to learn and train on. For the second question, how we are integrating this curriculum. So we just started creating the plan and integrate and mapping our courses to this curriculum. So for some of the modules, we can integrate them in existing courses. So in our programming courses, when we teach students how to read and write in files, we already included reading and writing in Unicode. So that doesn't require a separate course. However, more specialized courses for third and fourth year, for example, processing IDNs and internationalized email addresses in mobile apps. This can be offered as an elective course. Since we have not offered this course yet, it will be offered maybe in the next 1 or 2 years according to our integration plan. I don't know about students' interest and uptake of this elective yet. But for the foundational material, databases, networks, programming, it's integrated in those courses, not as a separate course.
Thank you, Fatma. Just in the interest of time, let's keep moving forward. So I'm going to invite Sesom Wang to talk about the role of public sector towards promoting UA, in promoting local language domain names and email addresses.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction, Dr. Samad. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to participate in this panel sessions. I would like to share some development of the IDN and IDN CCTLD .lao, and which has been an important step toward promoting what we call linguistic diversity on the internet for the Lao-speaking community. And on the slide, we actually had some preliminary activities even before the LANIC was established. At that time, there were what we call the e-government center that managed the CCTLD, and they actually started some activity on the IDN. And after that, around 2013 or 14, we also established what we call the root zone label generation, Lao script for Lao script. And at that time, I think Dr. Samad was one of the expert that supported us to successfully, let's say, we managed to submit the root zone LGR in 2017, and so in January 2018, we were able to submit the application to ICANN CCTLD IDN fast track process for the string Lao to be recognized as the what you call representing Lao in Lao script. And in December 2018, the stability panel actually already like approved for the application. And in 2019, we request for the delegation of .lao CCTLD, and that in 2020, ICANN officially granted the delegation of .lao CCTLD, and after that we focus on the promotions, and we work with a UA team and also some regional corporations. Next slide, please. In terms of the promotion locally in Laos, we did several things. Of course, public awareness, launch several events in the ICT Expo and what we now call the Digital Week. We actually had, uh, you know, uh, register not IDN, the Lao script domain name, but at that time we didn't have the IDN CCTLD just yet, and we registered the name of the chair who came to open the expo. At that time, I believe it was the Prime Minister, and when he visited our booth, we actually gave him that name, and in order to promote the Lao script domain name. And other than that, also all sort of the education and outreaches, workshops, trainings, also the stakeholder engagement. We talk with local registrars and ISP education sectors. Also the direct engagement, talk to the business and stuff. Online presence, like this, and promote on our all our media channels like websites, social media campaigns. Also, the benefit communications, emphasizing linguistic inclusion, cultural identities, and local market targeting and building trust. Next slide, please. And specifically for the UA Day, to my impression, LANIC is quite active and has quite consistent engagement with UA Day movement. And even before that, in around 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, LANIC also conducted one activity under the ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. There was a project supported by ASEAN. At that time, we led this project to study and create what we call the guidelines to promote the use of IDN and IDN CCTLD among ASEAN community. And the project actually examined relevant information and situation in CCTLDs and IDN CCTLDs and also UA. And that the study proposed a number of recommendations that aim at promoting IDN CCTLDs and UA. From this study, I found among several recommendations, the two that I find very interesting is as the IDN or UA area is a large and uncharted territory whose development require innovative ways and means. So government should take a role in reaching out to and mobilize other stakeholders like technical community, academia, private sector, and mass media, and so on, in order to tackle the challenges and preserve the national scripts. And second is we have to understand that presently both IDN and UA and deployment and rollout have remained quite niche that promise no instant return while requiring high degree of commitment, consistent, and patience, hoping their potentials as a driver of social economy development at some later stage. And for the UA movement itself, I think similar to other countries, we also joined the celebration of UA Day in 2023. At that time, we focused on the raising the awareness of IDN and IDN CCTLD. And 2024, we also participated. At that time, we focused on the EAI, and we actually completed the pilot EAI, and still in the process of improvement and expansion. And this year, we also committed to continue, and we will focus on the education sector, maybe work with a focus with one education institute and produce some curriculum Next slide, please. We can. Oh yeah, okay. This one. And this slide, I think public sector can consider to promote the IDN and EAI. You know, as I come from the public sector, of course, the first one is we should focus on policy and regulations. So the government should establish clear guidelines and for using local language domain name and email addresses. This should include mandates that all government software and IT system are UA ready, meaning they can all handle domain names and regardless the script or the language. Second one is the awareness and educations by launching public campaigns, integrate IDN and EAI into digital literacy program and collaborate with language cultural organization. And the third one is the infrastructure and leadership. So the public sector should lead by example. The government should adopt local language domain name and email addresses for their own services. We also need to support local domain name registries and fund research development to improve the technical infrastructure. And of course, we cannot forget the collaboration and partnership. We have to engage a lot with the private sector, ISP, technical developers, local communities, education sector, institutions, you know. And lastly is the incentive and funding. And the government can encourage the adoption by offering subsidies and prioritizing technology projects that support local languages. And I hope by implementing this strategy, some significant impact could be achieved. Next one, please. I can actually skip this one because it's yeah, for the matter of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You know, not in addition to sharing your own efforts, which are already quite significant, I think you present a very good overview of the different roles which public sector could actually play towards pulling all this effort together to make sure that internationalized domain names work in that ecosystem. With that, I think one of the challenges, of course, you have a question. So let me stop here. Maybe we can take a quick question because we're running out of time as well. And then we'll move on to the next panelist. Please.
Okay, sorry. Thanks for this excellent expose and seeing how you tackle it. Just a question, are all government services now available in the local script as well? Because that would help, I guess, right?
I think Lao people more prefer local script than English. So I think it's all the government services are available in local script.
I can't think of a better plan than that.
Thank you. I guess we've looked at it from a perspective of a country code, which obviously has a more direct stakeholder or user base. Let's also maybe look at it from a generic top-level domain perspective. And we have Werner Straub here, who's going to talk about UA in the context of new GTLDs and specifically in the context of next round of new GTLDs. Werner, please.
Thank you. I can briefly give a background for what I'm going to say coming from our own organization. I work for Core Association. Core Association runs registries and also registrar channel. So we have long experience with the subject at hand. And we run 3 IDN top-level domains, 1 in Arabic script and 2 in Cyrillic. Of course, when these decisions to create those TLDs were made, it was expected that there would be, new rounds kind of following up quickly. So we didn't think we would have to wait 15 years for the next round. Yeah. So we thought that it would be relatively quick. And the assumption on the other side for the critical standards was also that there would be new TLDs so that the standards would actually be, used on new examples. So there's a kind of a positive feedback between new top-level domains and the evolution of the standards for IDNs. That was the assumption. And we can actually see that this assumption is correct when we see that more progress was made in CCTLDs because over that period, additional CCTLDs came along and they helped the cause of IDNs quite a bit because they were able to do that outside of a big bang round as the GTLDs did. Now, even with that, let's say we have a situation, maybe you can go to the next slide. We have a situation that is encouraging on the one hand and extremely depressing on the other. And that is actually, despite all the successes that we had for this great effort that was made in EI, we almost hit a brick wall. And I say it is important for us to think of what is at stake now that we go to the next GTLD round and not miss an important action because of the underlying mechanism that is at work here. Now, maybe the first line you see on that table is demand for registrants. That is kind of the ultimate intermediary result. People are not buying IDN domain names. Let's just face it. The other ones are what leads to that. But maybe we can just go to the next slide to give an example. The top one is the Chinese Gongsi, means company. It is a quite successful IDN TLD, GTLD. But look at the volume compared to other Chinese domain names or other GTLDs. It is fairly low and it is going down. Now, the second one is our own experience with, admittedly, a hard one. This is the .bazaar Arabic script TLD. It has many challenges that come with it by nature. It is right to left. That makes it harder. It is a linked script. Arabic script is linked, it's cursive, so the characters are linked. That makes it quite a bit harder. Arabic is not the typical domain name, typical language where abbreviations are used. So this one of the engines of TLDs is that we can use abbreviations in Latin script, but the Arabic script is not so much used for abbreviations. So there's lots of reasons why this is a hard one. But anyway, if you look at what happened, it was kind of successful in the beginning, and then it kind of stayed. And here where it stayed actually kind of active because we froze the existing TLD. We did not deactivate them. They're actually not used. If we want to go further, it is just kind of me keeping it. So essentially, if you look at the .bazaar TLD, this is a net subsidy of $25,000 from a not-for-profit association to ICANN for no result. We cannot use this. Now, maybe let's go back to the previous slide again. So say what? I'm sorry? They're just not using them anymore. They gave up. And why did they give up? Of course, some of the things that are at play are just the overall problem of new GTLDs, which is what you can see the longer ASCII TLD column. You see that quite a bit of progress was made. So here it worked, even though, let's say, for the comfort functions is not yet so much the case, but mostly it worked. If you look at the Latin script TLDs, it works up until we go to EAI, and long-Latin script, of course, it is also hopeless as soon as we talk about EAI. Now, why is that? It's because EAI has design bug, and we just have to face it. It's a design bug. Now, when it was designed, people thought that this bug was a feature, and in as much as it was bothersome, the community would work around it by patching all the message transfer agents, MTAs. And what we've been seeing over the last couple of years, that the number of message transfer agents able to handle EAI is capped at 20%. That's it. It's not improving. There is not going to come any improvement in this area unless we change tack. We cannot force people to update their message transfer agents, and the buyer of a domain name cannot have any influence on all these other people. Now, what is the biggest problem that we had here is that the decision was made, and that's the design bug, that the email headers were going to be in Unicode. It breaks just about anything if you send email headers in Unicode. And they said, well, that's because, it's going to be easier ultimately. But we now do have the proof it does not work. We're unable to convince the others. And as we put that design bug into EAI, we actually included the cases where the TLD could have been used because there's a Punycode standard, it works. It would have had no problem. Essentially, we condemned each IDN TLD to unreliable email. As soon as you have an IDN TLD, because we force each MTA to send the headers in Unicode, they're going to fail whenever the other MTA doesn't know about it. So the entire TLD is condemned to unreliable email. Of course, that trickles down, and that brings me to the next slide. No, not the next one, clear. We've got this vicious circle. That's a vicious circle, which we can turn around. We can make it go the other way around if we make a couple of changes and use programs such as what Catherine has said and such as what Fatima has said. Those are things that are necessary in addition to a small tweak where I believe that ICANN could play a major role. Because ICANN and just all of us have to say, this is the engineers should do something. And, not more has come out because everybody's been waiting for things to improve. Now we know it's not improving in that respect. But if you look at where we stand, we have a bad universal acceptance experience just in one area. That's just one, that leads to expectation of low demand on even service providers. So basically, if somebody's going to go for a new TLD, are they going to go for an IDN one? They expect low demand. The lower demand leads to low effective demand, which leads to low awareness, which means that, again, there's not going to be much more supply. And most importantly, the end user expectations are going to be pessimistic. The end user, just as Fatima has shown on her poll, is that they don't expect it to work. Why don't they expect it to work? They don't see anything that looks like that works, which is the result of that vicious circle. Now, as soon as we go for the blocker that we have in there, we can change that circle. We can change it around. It becomes a virtuous circle, and so we slowly can get into a situation when there is going to be optimism on the side of the service providers, on the side of the people who launch new TLDs, on the side of people who buy domains. And as soon as they become optimistic, then we get into a virtuous circle. But that is not going to happen unless we remove the blocker. And the blocker is the current bug that we have in AI. There's a couple of other ones, but that one is the main one. Now we have another opportunity. And interestingly, that other opportunity was discussed indirectly yesterday and today in the domain abuse context. So we talk about domain abuse. We have been talking about domain abuse for years. And the logic is always to say that a domain is supposed to be okay until there is proof of the contrary. The domain name industry is just about the only industry in the world operating that way. Any other product is going to be certified, and then you know that this one is usable because it is certified. Then you can use it. But it's just because it claims to be a product, that's okay. No other industry than the domain industry works that way. The domain industry has a tool to supply information about domain names. That tool is called the domain name system. The domain name system is extremely powerful in supplying information that could be added. We've introduced new standards such as the DANE standard, points domain names to certificates. That's pretty smart. There's many more things that we can do. So we can use the DNS to point to new information that might be required in the context of IDN, such as what is a good transcription of that domain name if I cannot read Lao? The domain name system can give us the information. It would cost 20 milliseconds to do the lookup. We just have to define a little standard. And here's something where I believe that just waiting for the IETF to handle this would be the wrong approach. I think we could work in the way we have, worked in the ICANN community before. Sometimes some ICANN experts have written informational RFCs. Say, let's do things that way. It's a proposal, but ICANN is going to put its weight behind it. And that is slowly how things were able to change. So my overall note is, yes, why is UA important? Because we've got this this vicious circle that we must turn back into a virtuous circle. And how is this important? Because in the context of the new round, because there's a feedback mechanism between the investments that are going to be made in new TLDs and the investments that are going to be made in the universal acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you, Werner. We'll move on to, in the interest of time, let's move on to Jaco du Toit and request him to share UNESCO's perspective on enabling the internet and the work they've been doing towards promoting universal acceptance. And then we'll come back and open the floor for questions after that. So over to you, Jaco.
Thank you very much, and thank you for accommodating me in this session. It's well appreciated. What is UNESCO doing in order to promote, I think, also multilingualism and linguistic diversity? This is how we frame our work, specifically as it relates to universal acceptance. And I think the first element that is important to look at is to put it on the development agenda. We've seen governments, universities, and regulators that look at the question of universal acceptance. But for us, it's important that there's a more global adherence to the importance of looking at multilingualism in the development agenda. Why? Because it's about who we are. It is not because we don't speak another language. It's about who we are. If I cannot express myself, my ideas in my own language, and if I cannot recognize my language in the digital public space, we fall exactly in that wrong turn where we think it's not possible, that was mentioned, and we think who we are is not important. So it's important that we put it in a development perspective and within a rights basis perspective of our identity matters, and also our ideas and our knowledge. Now, how do we do this? I think one element that I want to highlight, and UNESCO is working a lot in the field of multilingualism and linguistic diversity, but I would like to mention a normative instrument, which is the 2003 recommendation on the promotion of multilingualism in cyberspace. A very old recommendation, I have to say, when we look at the question of multilingualism, but it's still valid. Why is it valid? Because it has a quite holistic approach when it looks at multilingualism online. And I think the question of non-Latin scripts and its use and domain names and email addresses can fall within different of the chapters, if I may, of this recommendation. And there are 4 chapters. The first one is on the development of multilingual content and systems. I think you called it technology standardization, which is one element. So if we don't have that standardization, then we will not be able to make use of our languages online. The second one is called facilitating access to networks and services. I think you called it ecosystem building. And this ecosystem building is important, where we put different elements together to make sure that we could, of course, there's the technological element, there's the skills part. Many elements are necessary to make sure that, that it works. But we also need content in our languages. And that's the third part of this recommendation, the development of public domain content specifically. Because if we have that high-level domain name and the email addresses, but there's no content then follows, will we keep on using it? So we need to make sure that there's more and more content that, that is available on the internet that reflect this linguistic diversity. And the last element is related to an equitable balance between interests of rights holders and the public interest. And for this to happen, we need to have this kind of interaction between different stakeholders to make sure that everybody is on board. Because if the universities don't teach, if the regulators and don't put the standards there, if ICANN is not there in order to promote and build capacities, then we cannot move forward. So those are 4 elements that UNESCO promotes through our recommendation. We ask our member states to report every 8 years about the implementation of this recommendation, and out of it we can get good practices. We can see what is happening worldwide in this field. So it's not just on scripts and the technical elements, but it is a wider approach. A second example that I very quickly would mention is within the promotion of multilingualism online, we also look specifically at what we call indigenous languages. Currently, we are within the 3rd year of the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. And you might ask, what does that have to do with universal acceptance? Well, one of the topics that we put within the action plan is digital empowerment. And digital empowerment also includes the development of scripts. And then also the digitalization of these scripts. Several of the 20 or so countries that have national action plans already put the question of script development and the digital use of those scripts within their national action plan. And that keeps, I think, these governments also accountable for making sure that, that this happens. I would like to also mention UNESCO's role also to build partnerships so that we could, within this broader scope of online multilingualism, we could catalyze very important work that is already ongoing. One of these partnerships is, of course, with ICANN, where we raise awareness about the concept. We encourage the adoption of these domain names, and also we're looking at capacity building. We're working on a policy brief in this regard to get more countries on board. Another example is also to work with big tech companies to see how they could use language technologies in lesser used languages. There's the Leave No Language Behind of Meta, for example, where we say, let's tackle the following 20 languages that are not digitalized, and how can we help in moving forward, and other examples that UNESCO is working, but bringing our brand also in working with professional organizations, international organizations, but also the big tech is an important leverage to make sure that more content, more scripts on the internet. I'll stop there, and thank you so much for accommodating me.
Thank you, Jaco. And we are over time by 5 minutes, but maybe we can still perhaps take 1 or 2 questions if there are any online or in the audience. There's a mic at the back. If you could go and speak in the mic, please.
It's not a question, just a comment. I am a user, a real user of the new ZTLD domain name, and I want to comment on the university acceptance of the using that domain name. So I'm working for the APNIC Foundation since 2020, and using the domain name. I know before, I don't think that they use that already, but when I joined to work at the end of 2020, so we start using the domain name at the email address under apnic.foundation. And then, you know, I am just over almost 5 years. I feel that sometimes I am a kind of a victim of the new ZTLD using, because, you know, sometimes on the website, when I enter my domain, my email address, it said, no, please input a valid email address. This one is not the valid one. My domain, my name at apnic.foundation, not a valid one. Domain name, email address, sorry. So I think I used to work as a web developer. So I think that's the problem of the web form, the validation, form validation. The developers, so they may apply the old validation rule that require the email address to be and by .com, .net, .ccTLD or something. Yeah, they doesn't accept the new ZTLD. So just, do you think we have any kind of scanning tool or something that can, scan for the form, the web form on the internet? It is accept the new ZTLD or not? So just an idea, and just raise the comment. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing your experience, and it's important to note that even though many of these presentations were on IDNs, universal acceptance is a real issue with ASCII domain names as well. So would anybody would like to comment on this question and a comment?
I do think there is a link, even in those cases, with the fact that people use old systems because they were mostly okay. But there is new reasons to review the old systems, namely security. Because there's so many reasons to do lookups for security reasons. And while people do that, they might do lookups that will be useful for other things. So is this a valid domain? And so, the more we combine the concerns in the context of UA with concerns that are elsewhere kind of on the table, the more we can get some economies of scale in the development efforts of other people because they have to look at these things anyway. I think that's one of the things we can achieve by communicating together. I say it's not just EEI, it's about the whole thing of set of things that need to be done by everybody.
Thank you, Werner. Anybody else on the panel who may want to respond? Yes, Jakob, please.
Yes, thank you so much for that testimony that you shared with us, because I don't think we hear, or those that develop hear, the fact that your name is not valid. And this is the message that people need to hear, is to hear you as a person is not valid because you use a certain script. And I think by looking at scanning, I think also some of the older technologies and calling out, I think the negative elements of making use of these older technologies or not being universal accepted, I think is already an important way to mobilize more and more people to adhere to universal acceptance. Thanks.
Thank you. So yes, I think there is a larger ecosystem which requires review. We need to obviously train our students who are in universities with these new, I guess, ways domain names exist in ASCII as well as in local languages. We need to reach out to website developers. Actually, these students, we are reaching out to our future website developers and system integrators. So obviously a lot of work needs to be done. ICANN, working with the community, is obviously very actively addressing some of these concerns, and there are obviously some improvements as well. And then on that note, I would like to thank all of you for staying longer and attending the session. I'd like to especially thank all the panelists here for making the contribution, and we'll close the session. Thank you.